Good afternoon. Welcome to Lunch for the Soul. I'm Melissa Wilson in our Fox 26 studio and newsroom here in Houston, Texas, and happy to welcome you here today. I love Lunch for the Soul because I get to meet the most incredible, uplifting people, and in turn, you do too. So, do we ever have a beautiful guest today? On the outside, certainly, but my goodness, on the inside as well, even more so. And that's what is the most important, I think, to life. So let me bring in right now Morgan Richard Olivier. Welcome to Lunch for the Soul. I'm so happy to see you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Well, we can all use a little motivation in our lives, I think, and that seems to be what you are best at. So I want to just start with how this all came about in your life in your first place, and we're going to get to all the books you've written and all of your successes. But let's talk about how you've figured this niche out in life, so to speak.
Well, I love writing. And a fun fact that a lot of people do not know is that I actually started my writing career in the political arena. I would write speeches, I'd help with campaigns, reach the people, because I grew up in a political family. Well, around 2016, everyone was telling me you should really consider writing for yourself, maybe put things out there. So I started writing for an online blog, and I would write all these positive, happy, self-love pieces. And probably a year after that, I went through a very severe depression, and they call it the quarter life crisis. But it seemed like everything in my life was just upside down. I questioned myself, my purpose, who my friends were, just really dove into therapy and realized that although I was very well put together, there were a lot of things within me, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, that were falling apart. And diving into that and really learning where my voids were, and then God putting me on the path to meet my pastor, it changed my mind, which in turn changed my life.
That is so incredible that you went through all those things to get to the other side, right? Is that how the tears that taught me came about? Eh, I mean, when I think about that title and I think, oh my goodness, somebody went through some hard times, but then you're using that pain to help other people.
Yes, that's exactly, and it's one of those conversations where I tell people, if you get it, you get it. But God had me in a season of being still for like 5 years. So in those seasons of revelation, in those seasons of being still, you have that mirror seeing yourself and your flaws and your weaknesses and your shortcomings, as well as that magnifying glass to see the people in your life, the environments in your life that are hindrances, that are not aligned, that may not have your best interest at heart. And in being still, you don't react.
Hmm.
Revelation, and you learn. So it's painful, but that pain is profound if you can express it and articulate it in a way that people understand that you're not alone in what you're experiencing. You are seen, heard, and understood.
Hmm.
That person or people are not necessarily near you, or people
Hmm.
you may have grown up with or have known for an extensive period of time.
Well, and I think that somebody can look at you and you are just so absolutely beautiful and think, oh, there's no way she could have problems. But I think it's so important for people to realize that it doesn't work that way, right? Like everybody has something.
Oh,
Let's talk about where this deep faith came from you. Here are your loving parents.
yes.
Did they instill these values in you, or how did that come about in your life?
Well, my values, yes, my foundation is definitely in faith instilled from my parents. I went to Catholic school my entire life, and I knew who God was, don't get me wrong, but it is different when you are learning about God opposed to when you're in a season where you're fully dependent upon Him. It's very
Mhm,
different how you
mhm,
look at yourself, how you look at life, but
mhm.
definitely having that faith-based family, having wisdom in my family helped me endure a lot of storms and also understand who to go to really heal and grow.
And here's your hubby. So tell me how he fits into all of this, and did he help you through those tough times, or was it something you had to work through on your own to get to the other side? What was that like for you?
He was very supportive. You know, my husband and I, we've been together this year. It's going to be 16 years together and 10 years married. So we grew up together. And I always tell people it's something beautiful when you can see people grow as individuals and as a couple. And through these times, Rusty's the more logical one. So it's a balance. So if someone's very sensitive, very emotional, I like to communicate. Having someone that is logical, that does not live in the past or future, that is fully present, it's very helpful because it creates a balance and a safe space that I definitely need.
Yeah. Let's go back and talk about your book and your writing. And I'd like to go through your books a little bit to tell people how they can benefit through them. So, with the poetry that you wrote, is it a lot of different poems? And are they about your feelings and working through that? Or give us a little insight into it?
So the poetry and prose, it's there's poetry, and I always tell people like poetry, it's not Dr. Seuss, not all of this rhymes, but really what it is, articulating the lessons. Sometimes it's an analogy, sometimes it's just straight up what I learned or what I was feeling into the depths of which I was experiencing it. So it's not like you turn every page and it's short. You might have maybe a 3-sentence page, you might have a full page, but the intent is for the person reading and the person going through that season to have those kind of maybe, how should I see this? Or how should I shift my mindset? Whether it's little nuggets of wisdom or long pieces to make you search yourself in your experience.
And let's talk about some of your other books. One Still Whisper, The Strength That Stays. Give us some insight on those.
So One Still Whisper was actually a book that I wrote during my Daniel fast. And just like we talked earlier in the interview, I was in seasons of being still. So when you come out of that, you have this intense season of deliverance and detoxing and development. So that included a lot of fasting, a lot of praying. And One Still Whisper really focuses on having those conversations with yourself, having those conversations with God, and bringing anger, offense, insecurity, those emotions, those spirits to the forefront and being honest and releasing them.
And then let's talk about The Strength That Stays, more about that.
The Strength That Stays is pretty much the part 2 of The Tears That Taught Me. And it's really focusing on the lessons and the wisdom and the strength that stays. So again, all of the books take you on a journey from the hurt to the transitional period to the healing.
It's such a powerful thing because everybody, like we talked about, goes through something. When we talk about, I guess, a greater purpose, and then using those bad things in our lives or the pains in our lives to make our lives better, how did you go through processing that information? Because I think sometimes you almost have to take a step away from your own life and look at that and really think it through. It doesn't just naturally happen. At least it doesn't for me.
No, either. It's giving yourself time and permission. And I wish there was something someone would have told me. Mind you, when I was writing, this was my very early writing when it came down to the raw emotion, faith, and those hard times was 7-8 years ago. So there are things that I'm just understanding and fully processing now that I had to live and really understand that. I think a lot of us, we go through depression, but then a lot of us have to look back and say, maybe this was a season that I did not have that level of exposure. I didn't have a certain level of insight to handle or fully understand. So giving that version of you, that grace and compassion and time to say, this is what I experienced. This is why I experienced and handled. And it's okay to move forward the lessons without so much condemnation.
And I just think that pets in our lives make such a huge difference. And I see you here just so loving with one of your mini fur babies, right?
Yes, I have 3 fur babies, and this is
Oh, what a cutie pie. I really do think it brings us so much peace in life. And I see you here with what does it feel like to be a published author? That's a big deal.
Yes, it feels great. I always tell people it's very liberating to just share that part of yourself and your soul and your mind, because it's a beautiful thing to reach people and resonate with them internally,
Yeah.
opposed to, just being around people. We have a very shallow world, unfortunately, but when you
Hmm.
connect with your experiences and your faith and your mindset, it's a beautiful thing.
I talk to a lot of people who would love to write a book, but they find it very overwhelming. How did you figure out how to not only be able to jot those things down, but then to get it printed, to get it published? What was that process like for you?
Well, my best advice to anyone that wants to write a book is just write. I think where we get caught up is we think that we have to write in a way that's already formatted. You don't.
Hmm.
I write constantly. So all throughout the day I'm writing. Not everything makes it into the next book.
Yeah.
But even for the Tears That Taught Me, for example, I had someone
Hmm.
send me a photo. They had a tattoo of a piece that I had in my introduction.
Oh,
And
wow.
yes, and that piece was written when I was in intercessory prayer in 2018, but the book wasn't published until 22. So I tell people,
I have
just,
goosebumps.
yeah.
Yeah, that's really neat. And then you just released a book last week. Do you want to show us that one?
Yes, yes, it is The Freedom of Forward.
You do write all the time, girl.
I tell people I mind my business and I write. My hobbies.
You are just rolling out that work. I love it. So tell us about that one.
So the freedom of Forward really goes into that internal conflict that we have when we are facing flesh and living a spiritually led life.
Mhm.
Because like we spoke about earlier, offense, anger, resentment, regret, condemnation, all those things come up when you are healing and
Mhm.
striving to move forward. And
Mhm.
my pastor would always say that the vessel, whenever God uses you to pour things out, what's at the bottom always comes to the top. So it's really, again, very raw. And I'm giving different just thoughts that I had, whether they were condemning or struggling to forgive other people, struggling to forgive myself, but
Mhm.
also giving those words and remembering, okay, guys, if we're going to live spiritually led lives, we have to forgive. We know that
Mhm.
God has a divine strategy. Why are we living with so much heaviness and so much offense when
Mhm.
a lot of these things that we reflect on were our catalysts? We have
Mhm.
to let it go. So it walks through that journey and really lets the reader know that the most important thing is knowing who you are and whose you are, whether other people see it, appreciate it, believe it or not.
Mhm. And you were talking earlier about that really rough patch that you went through, and then you wrote a lot about it, and that it was almost like therapy for you to help you. Have you found that if you even start staring back to getting into those harder days, that you're able to use some tools that perhaps you've told other people or that you've written down and you've tried to share that you can put back into your own life on a regular basis to just keep things a little more balanced?
Oh, yes, for sure. And that's the beauty of it. I mean, don't we all get to these points where it's like, you know
Yep.
what, God, we have to take our own advice.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
have to practice what you preach. And I think for a lot of us, that is difficult because we know we have to forgive ourselves and others. We know we have to move forward. We know that we have to truly press
Mhm.
on. It's
Mhm.
actually doing it and giving things to God and not going back and taking them back. Because I was famous for that one. I'd pray and I'd say, okay, God, I'm giving it to you. And then in 5 to 7 business days, you know what, God, I take that back. I'm gonna need that right back.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you hinder your own healing when you do that.
Well, and I love how it feels like you've really gotten close with your pastor, and I feel a lot of people are going to church where the pastor's just somebody on a stage and they don't really know them, and maybe they quote them.
Mhm.
Did that relationship develop where that person was really important in your life?
Oh gosh, my pastor is truly one of the most, bold, wise women. And mind you, I'm from Louisiana. So I just moved out here to Houston. So I'm going to be looking for, my next church family.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
my pastor is one of those people where she's such a safe space.
Mhm.
She can give you the word and she can give you wisdom, but she can give you love and grace and compassion. And I think that is something that's
Yeah.
so beautiful. And it's a bond that I'm realizing that not everyone has with their pastor to where they can just call them on the phone and stay on the phone with them for 2 hours, where I have that, and I'm so grateful to have that.
When we take a look you here, it looks like, I mean, you have a busy life of speaking. Who all do you talk to, and what is your platform of being able to motivate people and try to get them in a better space?
The beautiful part about it is that oftentimes I tell people that when I would write to the most vulnerable version of myself.
Mhm.
And the beauty of it is that the communities that I'm in, the platforms that I have, it's people that are ready to heal, people that are
Mhm.
looking at themselves and holding themselves accountable for their lives, doing the inner work, seeking God, going to therapy. So it is a beautiful thing where people feel seen again, seen, heard, and understood, but it also does it for me as well, because that's what purpose work is. It's
Yeah.
mutual. So it's great.
Do you have any friends or people who are really special in your life who perhaps don't believe and you just try to put that in their lives, or most of your really close-knit group believers?
So my best friends are believers. My best friends are many ways a reflection of me. They
Mhm.
value psychology, they value mental wellness, but they're very deep in their faith. So we can talk about emotions,
Mhm.
mentality,
Mhm.
spiritual warfare, faith, and be honest and vulnerable with each other. But not everybody gets that. Not everybody that I love, the family, friend, they're not all in that space. They don't all appreciate it or understand it or believe it or get it. And that's okay. That's something that took me a very long time to understand was
Mhm.
okay. But they say that all the time, that your calling is not a conference call.
Yeah.
People that get it, get it.
Yeah. Oh, that is so true. So where do you go from here? How many books have you written now? I've showed quite a few of them.
Yes, 6.
6? Are
Yes.
will there be more on the horizon?
Of course, of course. As I grow and
You're just
heal,
getting started, aren't you?
I mean, I just published my first book in 2020. So 6 published books later, but I think the beautiful thing is at this point, what I'm writing now, it's a pivot. So we've delved into the emotion, we've delved into pain, but we have to pivot. We have to
Mhm.
rewire as we reroute. So
Mhm.
it's a beautiful journey, but there is much more to come.
Where do you get your ideas? Are you driving down the highway and it just pops into your mind, or is it ever you're creating it all the time? How does that work?
All the time. All
Yeah.
the time. I could be
The wheels are always spinning for you.
all, and I get inspiration from things that people would just like, how did that inspire you? But I don't know. It's all day. Like you're saying, I could be driving, I can't text, but
Yeah.
I'll record it. Or I could be walking, I could be in a restaurant waiting for my food and getting something, but it's always there.
Yeah. I love that so much. And I know your parents have to be proud. What do they think about your writing?
Oh, they love it, and they're very supportive. I was blessed with amazing parents that push me and see me, and I think that's
Mhm.
a wonderful thing when you're growing as well, is being around people that see your potential, see your gifts, and inspire you and push you to walk in that. So
Mhm.
there's
And that might be, the pain of a whole lot of people who are reading your books is that they never knew that and they're working through that. So it's so nice that you do have that foundation. And then I truly believe that foundation helps with marriages. I mean, when you've had examples, doesn't it make it just easier when you know how things
Mhm.
flow, and it just seems to work better that way.
Yes, yeah, exposure is critical. So
Mhm.
I agree.
So is your hubby included in any of the writings, or do you keep your personal life more on advice versus personal life in your books?
Well, essentially, yes, he is very much a part of it because, again, I learned everything with him on my side. So
Yeah.
I learned from him, and he supports my growth and my learning, and he supported me through the hills and valleys of my life, and
Mhm.
that is that is something I'm forever grateful for. And I tell
Mhm.
him, like, we're gonna have to do a book one day, the two of us.
You need a co-author in one of these, right? I love it. Well, I
Yes.
think it's so important for people to be able to find out more about your story, about your books. Do you have a website that they can go check out?
Yes, ma'am. They can go to modernmorgan.com, as well as finding me on all the other social media platforms at Modern
Mhm.
Morgan, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Twitter,
Mhm.
TikTok, the whole nine.
You name it, that's where they can find you.
Yes.
And then do you ever tell people what's to come with your books, or is it always a surprise? What is that like?
I always keep it covered.
Yeah?
I don't announce anything till it's finished. Everyone has this mentality like move in silence, but they're telling everyone like, "Hey, I'm moving in silence."
Mhm.
So, but I present when something is done, when something is complete. Same when it goes to healings or soft spots. I will share with you when I've healed. I'm not going to share with you when the wound is open.
Oh, I love it so much. Well, as we wrap up today, for someone who might have needed this conversation and you made them smile, what is your best advice for somebody who is in one of those darker times like you were not too many years ago?
Just keep living. And it sounds like such simple advice, but when you are in the pit of your depression with the curtains closed, everything's dark, it seems like every time you take one step forward, you take 10 steps back, and everything in life is just coming. It seems so hard. You just have to keep living,
Mhm.
showing up, keep waking up, and you will get through that storm. You just can't stay in it.
Oh, Morgan, you're such a lovely soul. What a blessing to get to hear from you. You're a calming soul too, and I know your books are amazing. I am going to check them out. I can't wait. And I just wish you continued success. Keep up the great work and keep in touch with me. We'll have to do a follow-up after you've written your next six.
Yes, for sure.
And I know that's going to happen. I feel it.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. And I truly appreciate the conversation and the opportunity to converse with you.
Well, you absolutely blessed us today. Thank you again.
Thank you.
And I want to remind you all, if you maybe joined us late today, you can find us everywhere. Just go to either our Fox 26 YouTube page and you can look up Lunch for the Soul. Or if you have a smart TV, we make it super easy for you so you don't have to watch us on your cell phone or a laptop. You can actually go to your smart TV, just look up Fox Local. It's so easy to get, and you'll have all of them right there in one place. It's blessed to be able to share these stories with you. And then I want to remind you, you can always reach out to me. Probably easiest to find me at melissa.wilson@fox.com. Send me an email. That's how I meet a lot of these people. They'll just send me a note and I'll say, you know what? I would love to feature you. So maybe you're next. I hope you have a beautiful day. Thank you for being here and happy lunch for the soul. See you next time.